Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's Thursday, which means it's time for another Impact series. This is my favorite day of the week because every Thursday we invite amazing human beings from all around the world who are working on incredible projects, all of the issues and causes that we honor, to come and talk about their work and share, what's happening, what's working, what's going on for them, and share resources with our community. I'm Jessica Lauretti. I'm the managing director of the Anthem Awards. The Anthem Awards is brought to you by the Webbies and is on a new award platform that honors purpose and mission-driven work from brands, organizations, and individuals all around the world. We are now in our second season. We just closed our call for entries and we're moving into our judging period, and we will be announcing our finalists for the second annual Anthem Awards in January. We are starting to plan for our winter celebration that will be at the end of February of next year, and we'll be sharing more details with everyone as that becomes available. But you can always go to our website at awards.com and you'll find everything that you need to know about the award, and always call me or email me if you have any questions or want to chat. So without further ado, this is a little bittersweet today because this is our final episode of the season. I think this is the 22nd week in a row when we've been talking to folks from our community. We have an amazing guest today. Today we're talking with the Chief Creative Officer at MSL, Roya Partovi. Very special episode because we're going to be focusing on the protests in support of the women in Iran that Roya is really deeply passionate about and has been involved in. So we just want to welcome Roya. Thank you so much for being here and for all the work that you do.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's get started by kind of just talking a little bit about what's happening. So, I'm sure a lot of folks are aware or have heard headlines or have seen stories about protests in Iran. Can you give us background? What is currently happening, and what is the reason why this is that? Like, what has led to the out protests both in Iran and around the world?
Absolutely. So, simply put, after 43, almost 44 years, as long as I've been alive, of a very corrupt regime in the name of Islam, the people of Iran are taking their country back. This is not just happening overnight. This has been going on for many, many, many years. But these protests that started in September was after Mahsa Jina Amini, a 22-year-old Kurdish woman, was brutally beaten to death by the Islam's morality police in Iran for simply showing a bit of her hair underneath her hijab. And that's why you see people all over the world burning their hijabs and cutting their hair in solidarity with Gina and all the women in Iran. I do want to clarify that this is not a war with Islam. Islam is a peaceful ancient religion, but as someone beautifully said, this Islamic Republic is not Iran. The Iranian people are Iran. So despite these brutal crackdowns and shutting down the internet, the people of Iran are not backing down. So what we're witnessing right now is historic. It's the first female-led revolution of our time. So you hear Zan Zendegi Azadi, which translates to women, life, freedom, is the slogans that people are chanting on the streets of Iran, on social media, and all around the world now. So it's not what started as a protest. We're witnessing a revolution, and like I mentioned, it's led by young women and their sisters and cousins and mothers and grandmothers and by their brothers and fathers. So men are part of this. The LGBTQA community is part of this, and quite frankly, the entire world is watching right now.
Can you share a little bit about, like, what, for people who don't, what is the morality police?
Yeah. So, I mean, I can speak to my personal experience about the morality police. I was born in Iran. I think I briefly mentioned that to you in 1978, right when the Islamic Republic invaded. I call it invaded Iran because we were refugees and we had to leave. But so I grew up in Germany. My first language is German, and when I went to Iran for the first time, I was 11. And my encounter with the morality police was very much, I didn't know what it was about because I was like, I've never seen people with guns, women with guns, and especially guns with like knives attached to them. That was, I mean, as an 11-year-old, seeing that was very common in Iran, but it was very new to me. But I remember at the airport, I was getting hassled and everybody was speaking Farsi, and I didn't really understand it that well because Germany was at the time my first language. They wanted me to remove my nail polish. So envision an 11-year-old light pink nail polish. They wanted me to remove it at the airport before I entered the country. So my mother was like literally with nail polish remover that they provided, removing that because apparently they do that quite often when they don't like somebody coming in with makeup or whatever they don't like.
Right.
And then the second encounter I had was when, as you can see, I have big curly hair. When I was younger, my big curly hair was a lot bigger and longer. So I had to wear this hijab, which again, as an 11-year-old, you don't understand. We're like, I'm not Muslim. I'm not practicing this religion. Why do I have to wear this in this country? These are the questions that I would ask my mother. And I was standing outside because I was so hot. Iran it's like the desert. It's so hot in the summer. And I remember standing outside and going like this, trying to get a little bit of air. I was literally had a rash underneath my neck. And again, these morality police women with guns started like poking me in the stomach and just yelling at me. And my mom and my aunt, luckily, were there. They came out and they just, calmed things down and like herded me away. And I asked my mother, what is happening? Why are these people so angry? And it was interesting to hear from a woman that grew up in a westernized culture how things have changed and how she had to explain to me that now if you wear something that's of color, that's not allowed. If you wear makeup, if you have your hair out, if these simple basic human rights in the name of Islam has nothing to do with this, but in the name of Islam, they are making decisions of what you can and cannot do. And it goes on. Like when I list like the different things that you're not allowed to do, and that's why the song Baraye by Shervin Hajipour has become an anthem for women and people of Iran, because the song was simply woven together entirely by Twitter hashtag trends in which Iranians really shared and expressed their investment in the current protest, which was about singing and dancing in the streets, which is about just the rights of a woman, being able to wear what you want to wear, being able to get educated, being able to hold your loved one's hands in public. Kissing the person you love in public is not allowed. Like I remember when I wanted to get Iranian ice cream is the most amazing ice cream there is, and I'm just gonna come out. The reason why I'm saying this is because I remember when I was 11 and I said, Mom, I want to go get ice cream. And my mom was like, you have to go with someone that is related to you, that has like literally a certificate that says, I am your father, or I am your brother. You can't just randomly go with a random person, So it's very much imprisonment for humans in Iran. Sorry, did I answer your question? I was talking about the morality police.
Yeah, you did.
That went on in my personal.
I see someone in the chat said freedom to choose. So it's such an important point to talk about. Now, you mentioned that so many of the members of this revolution are young people and really being led by women. So can you talk about the power of, both youth advocacy and protest, and also female-led advocacy and protest, and success and fighting? What does this all mean for fighting for political, social, cultural change?
Yeah. One of my favorite signs from the protest was you fucked with the wrong generation. And this is so true. This generation truly understands the power of social media. So they grew up on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and they see other kids across the country living normal lives. TikTok is all about singing and dancing and expressing yourself freely. So they don't understand why I don't get to do the same things without getting arrested, beaten, harassed, and killed for
Right.
simply doing these simple things. So, you see a lot of, and the generation is so different than my generation, and I will talk about that a little later, maybe about the green movement, for example, in 2009. We didn't have social media the way we have it now, and
Mm.
and the fire and the force that these teenagers have is. I mean, I'm just seeing photos of these women without a hijab flipping off the mullahs and pushing them out of their schools and literally standing in front of guns. I mean, if you told me this a decade ago, I would be like, wow, that I can't
Mhm.
even imagine. So the
Right.
generation now, they are, yes, they are leading. They're not only taking back their country, they are leading the future, in every way. And it's not just in Iran, it's around the world. Is the connection that is created through social media around the world that is empowering them. And that's why it's so important for us to be their voices. Because again, just like any DNI initiatives, you're not talking to yourselves, you're talking to the mass, you're talking to your allies. You need that support. And the reason why this is so different is because now more than just women are standing up. Again, women are leading it, and you hear they're the voice of the screams, the yell. They don't give a f, but they are definitely supported by the LGBTQ community. They're supported by men, by just everyone, the entire country. So it empowers you, it fuels you to be able to do and continue doing what you're doing.
Right. Now, in your professional career as a creator, you specialize in really impactful visual storytelling. Can you talk about what you're currently doing in terms of creativity and storytelling in
Yeah.
regards to this movement?
I always tell this story because I feel like it has really helped me shape who I am. But as a teenager, before I knew what advertising, marketing, PR, or any of this was, I remember writing a manifesto. And this is obviously from my experience of being in Iran. I wrote a manifesto about wanting to learn about the most influential power engine there is, so that I could use that for the mass. I could use that for good. And it's funny because I actually found that manifesto when I moved to New York in 2010. I was packing and I was like, oh, I had horrible handwriting, but oh, wow. But it really helped me, get focused and validate why I was doing what I was doing. So you talk about the work that I do now. Yes, I'm a creative, I'm a storyteller, I lead creative teams. At creative agencies, and I infuse DNI through the work. Everything that I touch or my team touches has that DNI infused into it. But my voice is, and how I am, it's the way I'm communicating, it's the way I'm connecting, it's the way I'm influencing, mentoring, and quite frankly, bringing people together to create impactful work.
Hmm. I know, back in 2009, you mentioned this briefly, but you launched a social movement called Because We Have a Voice, which was an online forum dedicated to spreading awareness about human rights struggle in the Middle East. Tell us all about that, how it got started, how you launched it, what it does,
Hmm.
and how it's really
Yeah.
impacted people.
I mentioned it briefly because 2009 was definitely different. Facebook was barely 2 years old. I
Right.
remember I was at Saatchi at the time, and I was very involved at Facebook because we were learning on how to launch brands. So brands weren't even on Facebook then. Oh my God, I'm aging myself as I'm saying this out loud.
Different.
But so we launched because during the 2009 presidential election in Iran, also called the Green Movement, and it wasn't so much about taking political sides at the time, but we used Facebook as a social platform. It was maintained by volunteers from all across the world, and it was created to spread awareness. And it soon became the driving force for Iranian youth groups in Iran that were yearning to be heard. So we became their voices. But as mentioned, at the time, Facebook was very green, no pun intended, very green. They were so overwhelmed and didn't know what to do with us. The movement was much bigger than social media at the time. And so, I mean, even though the news channels, again, they're still struggling to keep up with what's happening in the world and trying to get the story straight. On that note, I should give a shout out to the German news, outlet, the Zeit. If every news channel could just follow them and get the story right, get the people on the ground writing about what is actually happening across the world, we would be in such better place than we are right now. But anyway, so they were, so our group kept getting, flagged, and it kept getting pulled down. We would restart it over and over again, try to reconnect the people. But it was just, the topics were too sensitive. I mean, the topics right now are too sensitive. You cannot scroll down Instagram and TikTok without saying, this is sensitive, this is sensitive. Well, of course it is. This is the stuff that's happening in the world. We need to see it so that we can address it, we can work on it, we can fight for it. So we lost a lot of online momentum, which then, on the other hand, we took a more traditional route by hitting the streets. And at the time I was living in Los Angeles, and as you can imagine, the Iranian community in Los Angeles, Torangeles, we call it, really came together and amplified the voice, and it was a global movement then as well.
It's extraordinary. I know there's so many people who want to help and want to learn and want to participate or support the work that you and millions of other people are doing. So can you share some resources and websites or just information, if people want to help or learn more, what can they really do to be a part of this?
Yeah, so the Iranian community has put together a great, well-organized document. And I've shared that with you, so I hope that you can maybe share it here. It has articles, talks, podcasts, films, books, but most importantly, real-time updates of what is happening in Iran. I mentioned this before. I wish that the news channels would just take this document and just get educated and follow what's happening there. An action that I would love to ask, everyone is to, this is so simple. It seems so simple, but it means so much. It's to post, to repost, help us amplify the voices of people in Iran. Amnesty International, please, we've already collected 750 million signatures. So, the power of crowds coming together, add your signature to remove Iran's regime from the UN Commission of the Statue of Women. I mean, that is just just think about that, with the visuals of what's happening in Iran. That is what's happened. That's what we're trying to the simplest thing that we're trying to accomplish right here. There's also, the Iran American Women Foundation. They are definitely a big force behind here. There's also a new organization, the Iranian Diaspora Collective. They are responsible for all the, all the out of homes that have been happening, the Times Square takeover. I hope you got to see that, because that was extremely impactful. If not, you will see some of the images captured in this document. And then, Iranians are about music, food, art, so this is our way of expressing ourselves. So please follow Disco Tehran, Cinema Tehran. There is a great group, Anonymous Artists for Iran. You saw some of the protests that happened in Guggenheim. And as of late, as of I think yesterday, they launched Cook for Iran. Famous chefs and restaurants like Sofra are taking part of it. And all that is just using our superpowers, I call it, because it's coming in so many different forms and shapes, to really come together and be the voices and not let these young kids, I'm talking about kids,
Children.
be forgotten in Iran.
Yeah, I mean, is there Thank you so much for sharing all that. We'll be sure to share the link in the chat. Is there anything that you want to leave us with today? Some final thoughts or anything you haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, I mean, if you care about human rights, this is your fight. If you care about women's rights, LGBTQ rights, animal rights, they're killing animals because they don't believe that dogs have a place on earth. I mean, again, this is everyone's right. This is not about Iran. This is global. So if you have a voice, please use it, because we see when we all come together, you know, we are so much bigger than our government. We are so much bigger than anything. So we are witnessing this right now. So please, please, please join us. Join us on this fight, because this is also your fight.
Very important words. With that in mind, remind everyone in the United States that it is the midterm elections next week. Do not forget to vote. It is so important for the future of our democracy, for everyone to participate. And as Roya was saying, when we all come together, we can change things. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for sharing all of this information, and just thank you for all of the work that you do. It's so incredible and inspiring. And I know so many people out there are grateful that you're here talking about this. So thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us today. If you missed any of this or want to share it, we'll be archiving it and putting it up on our website and sharing it in the next few days. So share it with someone who you think needs to know or wants to know or wants to be a part of this. So thank you so much again. And thanks everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.